so much for coming. We're so excited. So welcome to the Dance Theater. My name is Crystal Brown. I chair the dance program here. I'm also the PI for the Movement Matters Grant, which is a Mellon-funded initiative for interdisciplinary choreography across the disciplines of the college. That's a mouthful. So, thanks for coming. This morning you'll see our 3 Mellon artists who have been here with us for the entire J-term, working with 17 faculty members on its interdisciplinary research models. What you'll see this morning are the results of their inquiry. Doesn't have to be finished, doesn't have to be perfected, doesn't have to be anything that has an answer to any of the questions they were posing. But they're just going to show you where they are in their research. The 3 artists you'll see are Maree ReMalia, Makita Thomas, and Kate Spear. Following each presentation, there'll be a moment for question and answer. I'll come down, we'll moderate a small discussion, and then we'll move to the next artist. If there is feedback that you have for myself or the steering committee, please feel free to email that to us. It's movementmatters@middlebury.edu. If you have questions, or if you're a faculty participant or your faculty member who did not get a chance to participate in this round, please be in touch for the following steps of this phase. This is phase 1. So what will happen is that one of these 3 artists will then become our Middlebury interdisciplinary choreographer for the next 2 years. They will begin in the fall of 15 and stay with us until the spring of 17. So there will be many opportunities to be a part of the process. Thanks again for coming, and enjoy.
January 6th. Confronting my disappointment in this mirrored room with the way I look, feeling self-conscious and wanting to cry because I am not who I thought, and I see so much grief and pain in my body, wanting to let it go and be free, weightless like the sea creature who floats up to the ceiling, or the spirit who hovers outside with the snow. January 9. I don't understand the perception that poetry is a cerebral exercise. Poetry is so closely aligned with music, so obsessed with rhythm and breath. Poems have bodies, just like we do. Each poem has its own posture, its own way of moving, its own stance. January 10. I realize more and more that for me, the body, when I think of it at all, is problematized. I don't consider wellness until I lose it, or pleasure until it's in danger. January 11. It feels as though movement in my life is a chore, or simply a means of propulsion from task to task. I hope I will take from this project a more fluid sense of my own physicality, an idea that my body is not a burdensome thing, but a process, an expression ever-changing. January 16. Thinking about Gaga yesterday and how joyful, how unhindered, how it made me feel for the first time in my life like a dancer. I was dancing. I'm thinking about the alchemical quality this practice could have over time, and how it addresses the heart of what I understand our mission to be, allowing dance, movement, and body awareness to transform people and groups by making it so accessible, community-oriented, and welcoming. January 18. I think I'm reminding myself that every experience I have is also the body's experience, and that makes me realize the degree to which I am both limited and supported by the body. No matter how much I problematize it, the body is home. January 19th. The body is absent. The body is time. The body gives comfort. The body is food. The body surrenders, the body is weather. The body is dirt, the body relents. The body transgresses, the body dissembles. The body is ruined, the body is blessed.
Higher ed, middle grade, line them up, get them done, runners, take your marks, runners get set, wait a minute, movement matters, unfinished business, oh yeah. To understand relations between identity and the masks we wear, asks for a more thorough investigation through and of the body and its movement. To travel the frontiers of identity is to interrogate the borders where the body seems to stop and the mask appears to begin.
The heady frenzy, typing, scribbling, defensive stillness of chair-bound, tightly wound scholarship. Read quickly, output, finish that paper, ain't the business. This collaboration has been an opportunity, a call, to expand into our bodies as learners, as knowers. In our discussions, movement matters. There's a stilling, a rooting of insights, ideas as we move, living clarity of thought come from the stretch I feel across my clavicle or the arch of his left foot. Is this slow scholarship? Maree Gaga, modeling a decentered way of teaching, learning, listening to, welcoming the knowledge, embodied understanding of the world students come into the classroom with. How our perspectives, impulses, insights, ideas are inextricably linked to our positions, relations to each other, to the places we inhabit, feminist pedagogy, epistemology. There's no manufactured oneness or clean agreement that has emerged from our collaboration. There has been a mutual showing up, a willingness to risk, listen, immerse, reflect. Seeds of transdisciplinarity, communion. So,
In my work as a dance artist, I make efforts to honor diversity and create spaces for inclusion by using improvisational methods that can begin with tasks, scores, directives, images, and metaphors with which each participant has their own experience and from which a spectrum of unpredictable movement possibilities emerge. These methods also offer a meaningful way to generate choreographic material that draws from the personal experiences of the people with which I am working. As practice-based research, the moving body can act as the site to abstract what is familiar and be guided by intuition and impulse to try and access the subconscious. We then have the opportunity to notice or interrupt physical and mental habits. These noticings and interruptions can help us follow tangential information. It can lead us into liminal zones and offer the possibility of uncovering new information related to identity, perception, being, and a contemporary global circumstance. Among our percolating questions are how might these spaces help us uncover or offer tools for self-discovery and building community, navigating disagreement, establishing and renegotiating boundaries, and recognizing structures of mobility, oppression, and privilege. How might these heightened experiences offer us anchorage in our modern moment of rapidity, acceleration, and high productivity? And how might these experiences alter our approach to academic pursuits, creative interests, in our daily lives? It can help us engage in the world with full-bodied listening and arrive at more nuanced understandings.
To that end, or to that beginning, we produced a mission statement, which this is not in the script, but I will say may have been the biggest risk of all for me. But I hope it captures some of the ideas that Maree has given us, that we've given each other. Moving bodies to process difference, embodying movement to produce differently. We build coalitions of challenge and acceptance, working through the dialectic of mirror and reflection, and liberating them from each other. We mirror free from reflection, following movements of the other, getting out of our heads and into our bodies. By learning into the other, we create a richer understanding and experience of the body, our own and of others. We reflect free from mirrors, drawing these new embodied sensations and knowledges into a space safe for creative imagining, sheltered from the hungry eyes demanding immediate product. In this tug of war, we push and pull our bodies, our minds, across and through disciplinary and institutional boundaries.
I'm kind of feeling like we can open this up to things that we've dreamed into that could happen over a 2-year process, potentially. And maybe I can just name a few examples and feel free to chime in. We've talked a little bit about potential collaborations in various courses. Some of the courses are mobile sociology, visual sociology, Professor Catherine Wright's Writing Workshop 1, a Writing Gender and Sexuality course, and doing some work with the Writing in the Changing Academy series, and kind of designing models that we could use in particular lessons in a classroom that kind of use a relationship between movement to get it uncovering new information inside of a text, or finding new information inside of looking at visual sociology. Maybe Jonathan, you wanted to talk a little bit about your ideas with the Res Life work.
Good morning. So one of the interesting things that's happened this month, I think, is I've always thought about this idea of how you facilitate discussion and disagreement more effectively in the classroom. So I've been thinking about that for a long time. But on campus, the Just Talks initiative, the frustration on campus, I think, around figuring out how to talk to each other well in difficult moments, really suggests bringing the very fact that discussion is a somatic physical activity into the areas of Res Life work, even in the training of Res Life staff, where we could bring this sort of awareness that Maree has sort of helped me get this January about the breath, about the body, and thinking about disagreement and what we can do in training that part of life on campus, outside of the academic work, which was where I've usually thought about this work. So that's a really interesting opening that I think is a fertile one, and I look forward to playing with it more. I'll keep it short.
Some other groups on campus that I was interested in connecting with were the Wellness Committee, and the new intercultural group that's forming. I'm also interested in facilitating Gaga classes and improvisational experiences that are more geared towards community building and kind of well-being. And I also got pretty excited about the possibilities of collaborating with my professional artistic friends that are in various places in the U.S. and around the world, and kind of linking them to lines of inquiry that we've been following, or that might arise over a 2-year period. Maybe before I talk about one thing we did, was there anything anyone? So one thing that I was working on this month was a video project with my collaborator or 3 of my collaborators in Pittsburgh. And we were kind of taking information from what came up in our conversations, questions that we had, and linking it to a project that I'd already been working on with my friend Jill. And so I was kind of playing with the same prompts in a studio here, and then she and a video artist kind of made a little jumping off point for a potential series of work that we could do. And I thought we could share a little bit of those videos while we talk. I think I'd actually just like to open it up. Talk about this month.
So as a grateful faculty member, one of the things that I've appreciated about Movement Matters broadly, and then this particular coalitional learning experience specifically, is that it's invited, I think all of us, but I'll speak for myself, of rethinking who gets to inhabit what space. And what can we do with that space that's intentional and creative and transformative? And from there, what can we learn from that shift in inhabiting space together, which it's got me all dizzy in thinking about the possibilities for how that will trickle back into not only, I hope, my classrooms, but my research and my work as a member of the community.
Yeah, I just want to say how grateful I've been for this opportunity too, and I think especially as a instructor in an arts area, I teach poetry writing, and sort of, I'm housed within an academic department. It's been really meaningful for me to be able to work, with someone in another arts area and sort of cross-pollinate in that way. And it's exciting to think about all of the possibilities that could have for the future, and to think about sort of bringing some of our process discussions into poetry classes too. And it's a really exciting frontier.
In the images you see behind you, one of the things that I was struck by that is the idea the empty spaces that this particular artist uses, and how many of my classes are often empty spaces of movement still also. And clearly movement matters on this campus. We have this exquisite new $45 million athletic complex right next door. So we know movement matters on this campus. What kinds of movement are valued over others, and where is the body allowed to move, and where is it allowed to sit tight? And we often, I think in higher ed, have that notion that the finest minds suffer least from the intrusion of the body. So when you're bringing the body into the finest minds space, there's tension and beautiful, I think, creative opportunities that I've always thought of, as I mentioned earlier, on the academic side. But I think the idea that res life and how we talk together on this campus and developing a campus climate of deeper discussion around difficult issues could actually be deeply enhanced by bringing this movement matters work into that sphere.
A microphone has been handed to me.
Look out.
Which is my cue to speak. I'll speak about two things. One that Karen already brought up, but from a different perspective, which is one of the reasons I came to this project, right? And I'll tell the others in a second, but is to think about my work as a sociologist and the way in which disciplinary expectations were, I don't know if constraining is the right word, but they felt constraining recently, and what it might be like to be an artist and still a sociologist. I think I know that I'm not going to be a dancer and a sociologist. I don't know. But in some ways that leads me to my second point, which is to think about myself as a sociologist, where the body, I mean, if we think about the social body or the individual body, it's really important. And I've known that conceptually, but I think the weeks I've spent with Maree and the others have forced me not just into my body, but thinking about the body as a social product and a social location, which I knew from a theoretical point of view, but having to come out here and almost, although I wasn't quite tricked into it, almost doing a chicken dance at some point, really made me confront like what the self is in a very real way outside of the books I read and the lectures I give in class. So I'm happy for that.
So we have 10 minutes for questions from the audience. We have a mic we can pass around out here too. Thank you. Anyone questions?
Yeah, great. So I'm just assuming that you all developed your signature movement, and I'd love to hear about how that went, or did you? Maybe it's not safe to assume that, but you had different motif, kind of stylized movements when you came out in a line, and it was striking. I just wanted to hear about the process of getting to those.
The prompt that I offered was that we were kind of being with ourselves and being with the audience, and kind of engaging, active listening, and that as each person came forward, they would offer a gesture, and that the people following behind would offer a gesture in response to the gesture that they experienced.
The thing that we played around a lot with, I think, is this trope of mirroring and what it means to, well, I don't know how many people here took the Gaga class, but with a word or movement as a starting point, how is that internalized and interpreted by our situated selves? So I think part of the poses came from the person in front or the person following, but internalized, taken up by my own understanding, my own attention. I don't know if that made sense.
I'm curious about after this experience, if you have students come to you who want to be a little bit more, they want to integrate art forms and other things and movement into their studies, how would you encourage them to do so within the college environment and help them to be as interdisciplinary as you guys have, or collaborate as much as you guys have in the past month?
Well, I have some experience within sociology, anthropology. I've advised several joint dance and sociology majors. But I think part of the issue that we're dealing with in this group is how to make that slightly more institutionalized. Because it's fine if you find a willing professor or you can luck into it, but if you can't, then you run up against a whole bunch of walls and barriers. I'm working with a separate group that's not this group at all, but with a similar interest about trying to cultivate different forms of senior work as we move into mandatory senior work in the looming future, which is always slightly put off, but it seems like it's coming. But I think as it becomes mandatory, it opens up the space to institutionalize more open forms of exchange and interdisciplinary work. There's a few of us now pushing it, but I think it would be great actually for us as faculty to start reaching out to students and find out like what their interests are, because I think part of it is imagined based on the past, what we've had. But of course, we can't plan for the past. But I think the goal and challenge is to find some way to institutionalize this, both by what Crystal's doing, but also other departments on campus.
Yeah, I think for me, I think this has made that possibility seem really exciting, that a student might ask me about that and or want to have a discussion about that. And I think in the past it would have been like, sort of a frightening question and one that I would, sort of ask them to, I don't know, go talk to someone and dance, But now I kind of feel like, movement is not just for dancers necessarily, and there's all kinds of ways to explore that and, collaborating with someone over here. But I mean, in some way, we're all experts on the body, right? So, because we have one. So I feel a lot larger, I guess, in terms of the way I can talk about these kinds of things and my level of comfort, I think, too.
Yeah, I think talking to other faculty is absolutely essential for that to happen for students. Because if the faculty aren't talking to each other about these possibilities, I think that response is exactly right. It's interesting to sort of how much cooler I feel having been on the dance floor now. Like, I've been in the studio over there a bunch of times, I've been on this, I just feel like, I've arrived finally.
This is mainly for you, Maree, but for all the professors too. I mean, one of the things that came up for me is the notion that some of you have been living this, understand that bodies inhabit spaces in different ways and recognizing what some might call limitations, but others would call just different ways to move through the world. I just wonder how much that notion, you mentioned inclusion and disability, influences your work, but also it sort of maybe had some of you think about things that you maybe hadn't thought of before moving through this. Does that make sense?
I feel like asking the question and then kind of seeing what happens depending on who I'm working with kind of allows for the messiness of actually navigating those situations and seeing how things can work or how a group can function together and kind of exploring the range of people's limits. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No, I guess I'm just thinking about if you say dance or you say movement, right, that brings up for some folks, a particular narrative of how we move through the world, how we interact with the world. Even hearing you guys today, you're all, except for Jonathan, or you're all holding the microphone down. right? So who has access to particular spaces and particular ways that we move? And do we think about that only when, not only when we're confronted with quote-unquote difference, or is that part of the process that, this is a total leading question, that we're thinking about when, as we approach creating art? The idea that bodies are going to move differently, and that's not going to be something that we all of a sudden confront, but that is just, of course, that's going to happen. Does that? It's not a question. It's more of something that, when I was watching your work, that's what came up for me. So I guess that's a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that I'm interested in on an ongoing basis, and it's something that I kind of, yeah, that it's there.
I'm still trying to formulate this a little bit, but.
Please do better than I did.
Well, yeah. How am I doing? I feel like I have entered into perhaps the first minute of the month-long experience you've put in on this, but you brought me to the edge of the cliff of the chicken and egg syndrome, and I'm wondering about. Could you reflect for us a little bit on your thoughts during your creative process about how either the body leads the mind or the mind leads the body, kind of which way that goes, or does it work that way? I love the image of you folks on the floor reaching out and touching one another. I had this vision of synapses in the brain, this line of cells, kind of very slowly, this electrical current reached out and moved from cell to cell to cell and ultimately resulted in a reaction of the body, a movement at the end. And then it made me wonder whether, is that, if the movement at the end was a thought, was that the body leading the mind into a thought? Or if there were little thoughts coming along the end, and then there was the body at the end resulting in movement or something. I was wondering whether this may have come into your deliberations or reflections in your creative process, and if so, how? And if the answer is no, just let me down gently.
So that makes it harder when I take the mic. For me, the answer is yes and yes. And I guess I would take from Tara's invitation to Ian's reflection that as a person who identifies as having a disability and who inhabits so many spaces of privilege at the same time, one of the, I keep calling it magical, aspects of getting to be a part of this particular group and this particular creative project was the space to be that, to not have to perform otherness in order to both feel like I belonged here and to belong here. And so it was constantly, for me, a dance of imagining internally, cognitively, addressing where my limits are, where pain exists, and to be able to articulate that to others, and for that to flow into this project. It might not be so transparent to you on the outside, but that particular aspect of who I am was everywhere present for me in the words that got shared and the movements that got shared. And it was such a gift because I love Middlebury, and it's been a wonderful adventure. And I've never felt like I belonged so much as I did with this project.
Yeah, I know we're getting tight on time here. The one thing I was thinking about Gaga is the very invitation, that whether you're bipedal or not, Gaga is the invitation to understand movement in whatever shape or form you understand that to be. No matter who you are, what you are, whether you have to sit down to do it, stand up, one-legged, two-legged, that it was an invitation to any person in any shape or form. So I thought that the more I understood the profundity of that invitation. And of course, ideally, that's the classroom at its best, right? So if the Gaga becomes the natural embodiment of what every class on this campus is like, wow, imagine that. So that, when I started to really think about that infusion into pedagogy, into curriculum, into content objectives, that gets pretty interesting. And that makes the campus deeply and profoundly more invitational, I think.
Jonathan, can you tell us what Gaga is?
I'm sorry, Dana, but we have to stop.
It's going to have to come to the next
But Maree can, maybe, we have some handouts on it from her master class that I can give you.
Great.